be present for the fullness of it, this fleeting fullness. So a lot of people, I think it's quite something to be aware of, uncertainty so collectively, and maybe it's something that connects us. There's something that connects us in the fact that there is this virus that knows no geographic boundaries, that knows, well, it's rather, the virus itself is rather impartial. We know that people are being affected differently, but that I think has to do more with how human beings are quite partial. So we know that those that are the most vulnerable in terms of having basic conditions of stability in their lives. In the US, that would be very much linked directly to racism. Yes, very much directly linked to racism. I just heard that in the Mission District, where the Buddhist Center in San Francisco is based, they did a study. I really appreciate the San Francisco Public Health Department. I have friends that work there, and they have a strong social justice commitment. And in fact, one of the biggest national health and equity projects started with two staff from the San Francisco Public Health Department. And so the San Francisco public health response included doing a test of a 16-block area of San Francisco in the Mission District, which is, as of the last census, the most heavily densely Latino populated area of the city. And I really feel appreciative that they wanted to do that study to precisely expose and be able to respond to the very likely potential of a disproportionate impact on Latino communities, given what we've been seeing. And 90% of the cases that tested positive were Latino, 0 were white people in the Mission. Yeah, that's quite stark, quite a stark statistic. I just heard that on the radio a couple days ago. So that's in our neighborhood, the neighborhood of the Buddhist Center. Yeah, so I suppose the more privileged we are by class conditioning, access to resources, the more there might be a sense of being able to stave off uncertainty, by trying to gather protective conditions around us, around oneself. And of course, one thing I'm struck by is that metta practice recognizes we have an instinct to self-cherishing. And it's actually, I always found it fascinating that it was considered neither ethically positive or neutral. Again, it's just, yes, it's observably true in human beings. So yeah, of course we'd want to be safe and well. But to what extent is that actually a healthy impulse that could actually connect us? And when does that become a toxic impulse that actually divides us, right? And creates a divided world. So that's something I've been thinking about. Many people have objected to the framing of this time in media as being a time of uncertainty, as if it's such a shock, because so many people with different experiences have said, yeah, life is very uncertain. We're very aware of that. If I'm migrating across borders for work, let's say I'm migrating across the US-Mexico border for work, I might be very in touch with how uncertain it is whether I'll make it across, right? Whether I can go see my family in Mexico and also make it back for my work, so that I can send money home. And this is stories of people I know firsthand. Maybe some of you have friendships where you have these kinds of stories in mind. So yeah, So I suppose that there's a level of uncertainty that can connect us in that, appreciating our vulnerability, and rather than just trying to look out for ourselves, there is the possibility to open, to succumb to that rather sane impulse to connect. Yeah, a form of self-cherishing that is about recognizing we're connected and to want to connect. I noticed both in myself. I noticed that I had a very funny teaching moment about myself. I'll laugh at myself. I became like this total caricature of this nosy neighbor concerned about whether the neighbors were properly practicing like social distancing. And even as it was happening, I was totally like that person, like peeking through the window, like, what's that noise going on in their yard? And then like all the, the feelings of feeling unsafe in the body. And then these thoughts like, oh, like, what are they doing over there? And even as it was happening, I saw it happening. It was really fascinating. It was kind of like happening. And as I was also saying, well, look at this, look at me, just look at this whole thing. And it really gave me appreciation for how othering happens. I mean, usually I'm a bit maybe more exasperated by how othering happens, meaning like how, especially myself at this time, for example, being obviously Asian, yeah, I can be more unhappy about othering being something people do. But actually that was a very helpful moment because I was doing it, it was like literally like the fence and what was over there was other. And I was just I really appreciated the opportunity to see how quickly that happens. It comes from an underlying state. And for me, I felt like there was this underlying state of risk generally. It's not even necessarily rational. I was in my house at that moment, but just my body is, not only aware of my own risk, but the risk of many, many people. So there's a mirror neurons. There's a way in which my body is holding not only my own experience, but our collective embodied experience. And there's an unexpected sound. So my body is like a little bit hypervigilant and wants to know, hey, what is that? And then, this whole thought train starts because I've been exposed to so many messages about, even though I resist them, about, those people over there that are a problem. And even though I can be very quickly viewed as one of those people over there, it's like I'm not immune to falling into that myself. So it was a very good lesson. Yeah, so I wonder how in this time we can be just fostering connection to yourself, your own body. I feel like the more I'm aware of my bodily sensations in that moment, I could notice what was happening, try to work with it. I went for, then my husband came home very, very shortly after this was happening. And then he got an earful of my like stress communication about it. And he was back from only his second day back at work. So he himself is stressed because he works in property management. He is on the crew for these buildings that have hundreds of people in them, right? So he's just getting used to being exposed to all that. He had taken time out because he's a little bit older and had the choice to do that. So he got home. Of course, he had his own, relaxing to try to do. And then I was giving him an earful, and he was looking at me like, "All right, I think we just need to like." Maybe that was just one time next door. Let's just see what happens. He was just, I could tell he was trying his best to stay present. So that was another good message, is just to be aware, as all the energy starts to go up, maybe just be aware of tuning into each other more. And I've been trying to just be generally more aware of other people's bodies, more aware of, like I was just on the phone with someone, I could just feel they were breathing higher. We were in a meeting and we just asked whether it would be helpful if we just stopped and took a few breaths together, right? We just did that for like 1 minute. We just stopped the meeting. We just took some breaths together. And she said, I feel so much better. You know, and I could have just seen her like that and just try to just push on through. So I felt like, oh, how often do we do that? You know, and it's a chance for us to, just little ways to become more awake at this time. I think that's all I want to say. Didn't want to say a lot, just some thoughts for me. I'm sure you have your own thoughts. What we were going to do is take a break for 10 minutes and then come back and just get into some small groups and just notice groups of 4 and just share a little bit about just your own context, anything you've noticed, which is a ground of practice for you. You know, maybe something that gets activated at this time, a way in which you're trying to bring some practice, some conscious intention in, or just a way of working with yourself. Then we'll come back. There'll be a chance to bring up something if you want to share or ask me a question. You know, that we could just riff on together. It's not like I'm going to have the answer, but maybe we can riff on something together, like a good jazz trio. And then we're going to end with another sit, like one that's more about tending to the heart. So we'll just have a little chance to tend to the heart. Yeah. So I want to dedicate this practice to my beautiful neighbors who actually know and do talk to. And yeah, sometimes they take our garbage cans in, and you know, sometimes we give them extra bananas. And even so, I apologize to them for my little moment of losing my grip on reality. Thank you. And enjoy your 10-minute break.
So yeah, we'll break for 10 minutes, which means 8:07. We will be back here.